Let's get to the man who graciously let us rent out his hour for the evening. The one, the only Bill O'Reilly, the host of The O'Reilly Factor. He joins us now on the phone, and he's been following the situation very closely in Ferguson, Missouri. Now, Bill, as I see it today, three big details dropped. One, that surveillance video of Brown stealing the cigarettes, allegedly assaulting the store owner, running out the door, the name, of course, of the officer, and the police chief coming out saying that the officer did not have any knowledge that he was a suspect in that robbery. What is your take on today's events?
Well, the story makes me angry. That's why I'm taking time out of my vacation to be with you guys tonight. I want the Factor audience and everybody else to know that this is just bull. Just bull. And here's the deal. People, unfortunately, these days believe what they want to believe. All right? They're not waiting to see what really happened. That's number one. That you have a number of forces in play that are trying to convince people of the truth, unquote, all right, the truth, when they have no blanket idea what happened. None. So decent people step back and say, you know what? We want to know why this unarmed young black man was killed by the police. But we're not going to break into stores. We're not going to set fires. We're not going to accuse. We're going to wait and see if the system works. All right. Now, the system has to work in this case because the President of the United States has already weighed in, and the Attorney General has let's say, a rooting interest to get stuff done. This isn't the IRS scandal, all right? He's got to get the facts of the case out. So let's start there, that decent people step back and allow the facts to emerge. Number two, if you guys want to jump in, just jump in.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in, Bill. This is Beck. I think you're right about decent people. Decent people showed up at two town hall meetings in the last 2 days to let their frustrations out in a peaceful way to both policemen and to the town officials. And yet, as far as I know, no network ran a single piece of footage of those. I don't know whether you did on your show. I know we didn't do it on our show. And I just want to get curious of the town hall meeting.
Yes, we did.
Okay, I'll take that back then. But is it not the case that most of the people involved in these protests are people who are doing it peacefully? The ones who are the small minority who are doing the rioting are the ones getting on the air. Well,
it's not so much as that. I would think that most people are upset, and they certainly have a right to be upset and make a point that they don't want unarmed people being shot down for no reason. But there may have been a reason. There may have been a reason. Because when the story first broke, we were told that the victim was just a regular guy, and now we know he's not a regular guy. All right, we see it on tape. We saw what he did in that convenience store. He's not a regular guy. All right? So I'm not going to draw any conclusions, but he's not a regular guy.
But the cop didn't know that.
We don't know what he knew. I mean, the timeline is confused. And I also will say that the Missouri Attorney General should have taken this over from the jump. It's confusing. They're in over their head there in Ferguson. They don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to hold a press conference. They don't know how to answer questions. They don't know how to do anything. Let the professionals come in. The state of Missouri should be running this show. But even more, I mean, now I'm hearing from the National Action Network, which is a despicable organization, that this is a smear that they put out this video of the victim assaulting a clerk and stealing some stuff in a convenience store. It's a smear to put that out. I mean, come on. There comes a point where we know what you're up to. All right, we know the racial agitators. We've seen them over and over again. The names are very familiar to every American. But I think the American public has got to repudiate these people. Now, if the police officer gunned down this guy because the guy was walking in the middle of the street, if indeed he had his hands up over his head, then the police officer is going to go to jail for the rest of his life. All right, that's what's going to happen to the officer. But we have a presumption of innocence in this country. All right, even if you're a cop, you're presumed innocent until proven guilty. So that's where we should all be starting. Go ahead.
All right, so let's go back to the morning. I think it was around, when was that press conference? Around 10:15. I didn't have personally any problem with people. I want to find out what's going on. I want to find out what happened before. We heard that the cop, who we didn't know his name, we heard he had to go to the hospital because he was getting pounded by this guy before he shot him. Then all of a sudden this video pops up, and I think it's important to the case to see what the what the 18-year-old was up to before he got into the confrontation.
How do you know he was being pounded by the guy?
Well, I could tell you what I know from the press conference. The sheriff said that he went to the hospital with bruises because he was getting pounded by the guy. So I don't think he banged his head on the ground.
Let me jump in here. Well, you don't want to try this case on television. You don't want to do that.
But let me just ask my question, Bill.
If the man had bruises on his face, that will come out in the investigation. The FBI will know. There'll be forensics done. There'll be a medical report
Well, the sheriff
produced.
said it.
All of that will come out, all right? So we in the media, we should not be trying this case on either side.
But Bill, I know, but he said it in the press conference. So I'm just saying that...
It doesn't matter what he said, Brian.
It doesn't matter what the sheriff said?
No, it doesn't matter what the sheriff said. Because what he says and what takes place in a court of law are two different things. Just as it doesn't matter what a witness says. A witness says he had his hands in his air. He was doing this, he was doing that. It doesn't matter what you say on television. It matters what you say under oath, under challenge.
Bill, so are you saying that we were better off not seeing that video today and not having the press conference?
You had to put the video out because that is the public's right to know. But what the public doesn't have a right to do is draw a conclusion of the case from that video. All right? But it's not a smear. That's ridiculous, as Charles Krauthammer said.
But does the public have a right to know that the cop had to get treated for whatever confrontation he had?
The public has a right to hear it, but not draw any conclusion from it. All right? That all has to be presented in an evidentiary way. We are a nation who wants CSI, Ferguson, in an hour. You want it solved. Not happening. There's got to be a lot of investigation, and everybody's got to pull back.
Bill, Jedediah here. This has led to a big conversation about the demilitarization of the police force. Lots of people have weighed in on that. Prominent figures, Rand Paul, who may run for president, has come in and written a column recently about that. Do you think that's warranted in this case? Should this spur a discussion about the police force and the tactics that they're using?
No, I don't think it's warranted in this case to tell police departments across the country what hardware they can have. I think that's ridiculous. I do believe that putting these guys out there in Ferguson exacerbated the situation. I would not have done that had I been the Attorney General of Missouri. I would have put people out in force, but I wouldn't have put tanks out there and snipers out there. I wouldn't have done that. I think that was an unnecessary escalation at that point. Judgment call, the authorities made the wrong call. But to say that, you know, police departments in New York City and Los Angeles who could face rioting at any time shouldn't have every weapon at their disposal is insane.
Bill, Henry here. You said there was presumption of innocence for the police officer, obviously true, but that applies to Michael Brown, the victim here as well, right? Because even if the videotape is correct and it shows that he stole cigars, an 18-year-old kid should not be shot over Swisher Sweets.
Absolutely not. Right. And he has a presumption of innocence as well in all of the controversy surrounding him. And because he's dead, and because his family is grieving, all right, he has to be given more latitude in the sense of judgment. So you cannot make a judgment about Mr. Brown. He's dead. All right? So just out of human kindness and sympathy, you can't do that. So I want that to be very, very clear. However, you have a situation where there is so much evidence being put out on TV that's unchallenged evidence, unchallenged, all right, that you've got to say, if you're a decent, fair-minded person, enough. We'll try this in a court of law. We won't, look, I hate this no justice, no peace slogan. I hate this. Whose justice are you talking about? Yours? Al Sharpton's justice? If you want Al Sharpton's justice, you're going to have anarchy in this country, all right? That's the kind of justice that guy peddles. No justice, no peace. Hey, you're not in charge with the sign. Justice is meted out through our system, which has worked since the first Constitution was enacted. That's where justice is enacted, not out in the street.
Bill, it's Tantaros again. I want to ask your thoughts on how you think the administration has handled this situation. Of course, President Obama weighing in from Martha's Vineyard yesterday. A little bit troubling to me that he led with what he thought were the facts of the case when nobody has the facts of the case. And also your thoughts on Attorney General Eric Holder saying that he's launching a civil rights investigation, specifically civil rights, into this instance.
Number one, the president has a perfect right and a responsibility to call for calm. All right? Number two, he should never comment on the facts of the case. Never. Number three, he can show sympathy to the family. That's appropriate. Number four, he should have done it once and once only, not twice. Holder is doing that, the civil rights angle, I believe, to de-intensify the situation. I don't mind that. You're going to have that kind of an investigation anyway.
How you not call it civil rights when you got 85% of the police department are white and this kid is black? I mean,
right. And I have every confidence that Holder will investigate this honestly. But here's the rub. Holder has been so incompetent up to this point that much of the country has no confidence in him at all. So his chicken just came home to roost, as the Reverend Wright just once said. Because he has been so incompetent that he has lost the confidence of many of the folks.
Okay, let me ask you this. Talk about incompetence. The police chief decides he's got this videotape of this kid in the store for 4 days. Mm-hmm. He decides to release it the same day he releases the name of the cop, impugning the reputation of this kid. You think that's smart on their part, or is that just, in my view, a fairly racial move on his part?
No, I don't believe that guy has any racial motives at all.
Why did you release the videotape then?
Because he's sympathetic to his man. That's why.
Okay, fine. So he picks up. Okay.
If you're the leader, Bob, of a organization that's paramilitary, as the police is, or a military organization, you've got to be sympathetic to your guys. And if they have a videotape that puts a different light on the victim, they're going to release it. Now, should they have held it back? I have to ask the man that. He doesn't look like the brightest bulb to me.
That's for sure.
With all due respect to him. He looks like he's in way over his head. And he's probably taken orders from other people about what to do. But look, I don't mind them releasing that videotape. They had to do that.
Well, and
as far as the timing is concerned, again, everybody pull back. We'll find out what happened here.
Bill,
I have confidence that we'll find out.
Bill, this is Henry again. It seems like maybe that goes to your point about how the state attorney general should have stepped in immediately.
He should have stepped in right away. The state authorities should have taken it over.
Because they had this videotape, whether it proves anything about Michael Brown or not. The police chief sitting on this videotape for 4 days. My understanding is he didn't speak to the family of the victim for days. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things President Obama got at yesterday, which is that you have to have transparency in any criminal investigation, number one, for the victim's
family. He's talking about transparency?
Well, okay, fair point there.
Fantastic.
However,
wait a minute. Look,
that's inflaming the situation without transparency.
There's another thing that you're not taking into consideration. They may have held that videotape back for the family of the victim, the Brown family. All right? So the guy's dead. You want to put that video out a day or two after and besmirch the kid?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, come on.
Yeah.
Look, again, you step back, all right? You step back and you let this thing play out. But Americans, I mean, I'm telling you, you have to stop these exploiters. The people who are exploiting these tragedies, we all know who they are. You've got to stop these people. Because they are really harming the nation.
Well, Jesse Jackson, while you were talking before, we just showed footage of Jesse Jackson walking through the streets. Al Sharpton's going to have another demonstration on Sunday. You know, once he left, things calmed down. Once we got Ron Johnson in charge, who grew up in the community, and he came down. I think he's done a great job. He actually was marching last night with some of the protesters. You know what I think we're going to end up, Bill, probably on your show in about 3.5 weeks? The bigger story is going to be what Paul Ryan did about 6 months ago. He's like, what is going on in the inner city? Why do these people feel so frustrated? Why is it that generations feel as though that this country's not for them? And I think the next candidate, the next effective politician, will not be focusing on this incident. It'll be focusing on why one incident can blow up an entire town like this and have the whole country talking.
Well, you want me to answer that? You have time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. When people are poor, they're frustrated. All right? When people feel powerless, they're frustrated. So the communities across the country that are poor, and it's not necessarily they have to be black, you don't have any power. So you're frustrated. And something happens, you want to vent. That's been going on since the dawn of civilization. The second thing is that we're living in an age now where people are not disciplined in their thinking. They're easily led. And that's frightening because the mob can really damage a country. And these guys who know how to exploit these race hustlers and agitators, all right, they know how to push these buttons. Yeah, you remember the lynchings back in the 19th century. Yeah, you remember Jim Crow, right? Well, nothing's better. This is same stuff that your grandparents had to go through, and you are going through it now. You can whip people up. The demagogues have done that throughout history, and that's what they're selling, grievance. And it makes me sick, and that's why I'm on the phone with you tonight.
Bill, Jedediah here with a final question. You said that, you don't want to try this on television. I wholeheartedly agree. If you had to give a grade to the media in terms of how they have handled this situation, what would you give them?
I mean, look, it's a big story. There's nothing much going on in the United States. There's a big thing over in ISIS and there's the Ukraine. But this is a story that the media has to cover. There's great pictures for television. I don't mind the media covering it. But I do mind the media giving unfettered access to the agitators and not challenging them the way I am tonight. I called you guys from my vacation because I'm furious that these people whipping this crowd up in Ferguson are going largely unchallenged. And I want it to stop. And I'm going to do everything I can
to join us. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
I appreciate you guys having me in tonight.
Bill O'Reilly, thank you so much. Thanks for loaning us your hour. Next.